Gonna make a change for once in my life. It's gonna feel real good. Gonna make a difference. Gonna make it right.
Anyway, thank you very much, Sedalia, for the very kind words. I think she always exaggerates my I guess, contribution, although I was very much, for me, a pleasure to be involved in helping a profession get access to a baccalaureate degree and gain recognition for the schooling that you get while you are preparing to become a registered massage therapist, so that it is a true 3+1, that 4-year bachelor's degree. So everything that you take in this school, West Coast College of Massage Therapy, all of your 3,000 hours of schooling for those 3 years is recognized in advancing into the 4th year, which is offered through, not Kwantlen, where I work, but at Thompson Rivers University because of their open university, because again, I thought they had the best template for the creation of that baccalaureate degree, so that's why it exists there, not at Kwantlen. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about that the degree exists, but I am going to talk a little later about other opportunities because this is where post-secondary education is going right now. It's recognizing learning from prior opportunities and allowing one to advance with that learning at an upper level of entry. So in my days, when I was a university student, if I wanted to advance into a different field, I would have to start at ground zero. Now, you don't have to do that. But before I get into that, I'm going to talk very briefly about the sort of what I see as the overall issue in front of you, and very briefly, because there are experts here that can describe it better than me. I'm not a massage therapist. I have a PhD in chemistry. I have taught chemistry, and I have been a dean of applied technology programs, science programs, and been registrar as well at 2 different institutions. So, but none of that ever had me doing massage therapy. But I can tell you that in looking at what lies in front of you, you've got a challenge and an important decision to reach. In looking at the CMTBC, it is the regulatory body for massage therapy in British Columbia, and just taking from their website 2 of the most important aspects of their responsibility that applies to the issue tonight is that they establish, monitor, and enforce standards of education and qualifications for registration of registrants, number 1, and number 2, establish and maintain a continuing competency program to promote high practice standards amongst the registrants. So I just wanted to focus on those 2 responsibilities of the college for you to remember when you listen to some of the other speakers. And schools like the West Coast College of Massage Therapy provide the educational program, but that program has to comply with the standards of education that is set by the CMTBC. So the graduation from that program allows you to then apply for, or gives you eligibility for RM2 designation in British Columbia. So those are kind of the 2 underlying, I guess, responsibilities of the college and of the schools that provide the schooling. The conflict that you have is that you've got one ruling that the College of Massage Therapy in British Columbia established that sets the standard for schooling at 3,000 minimum hours, and that's what you can get here at this institution. But in conflict with that is a more recent development, and it came out of the international trade agreement on international trade that many provinces have signed across Canada, and Canada has been signatory to that as well, that establishes competencies, and competencies theoretically are not based on years of schooling, but on competencies that the profession wants its practitioners to have. And that competency, because it's not based on years, never tries to tie a year of schooling to that. However, when you look at it, at least from my perspective, from a logical perspective, that if it is suitable in Ontario, for example, where their schooling is 2,200 hours and they can achieve the competency there, Whereas here it's 3,000 hours, it does raise the question about those 300 or 800 hours differential as to whether or not, what it provides for you. And I've heard some people call it fluff. And I don't believe that's the case. If I believe that is the case, I wouldn't have taken an interest in looking at degree advancement beyond what you get here in British Columbia. But that's kind of the challenge that's in front of you, because the question you're going to be asked eventually is, why are we continuing with a 3,000-hour model in this province when you can gain the competencies to become certified at 2,200 hours? So that's your challenge that you're faced with, and I would argue for maintenance of the 3,000 hours, and that's where I'm going to spend a little bit of time. But what you have to ask yourself is, are those 800 excess hours fluff in British Columbia educational system? That's one question. The second question is, can a patient detect the difference? Because part of the responsibility of the college is to protect the public in the healthcare that profession is providing. So can you detect that difference between a 3,000-hour schooling and a 2,200-hour schooling? Now, I'm not a massage therapist, but I've been treated by massage therapists, as has my wife, and both of us can tell the difference. There is a distinct difference. There is an advantage of those extra hours. Well, I'm going to leave it there and let the other guests talk further about the 2,000 versus 3,000 hours. I'm going to talk about educational opportunities and trends in post-secondary education. What you do have now is that you do have the ability to go to Thompson River University and take that 4th year and obtain a Bachelor of Health Science. And that is the only pathway for massage therapy in the world that leads you to a degree without you having to start over again. And it's the ideal one because you actually go directly into year 4. The only thing we had to change, I believe, here in British Columbia at West Coast College of Massage Therapy was the inclusion of an English course. And I don't believe there were any other revisions that allowed us to get that 3+1 partnership. But I'm going to talk briefly about other professions that are, I could say, that maybe are in most of which are in a similar category. First one, maybe you could question that one, but I'm going to talk about nursing and what has happened in the nursing profession. In 1982, the Board of Directors of the Canadian Nurses Association, which is the CNA, unanimously endorsed the notion of a baccalaureate degree as the minimum entry requirement for practice, raising nursing education standards from an RN to a BSN. And this has been endorsed by most provinces, including British Columbia. If you look at occupational and physical therapy, the basic educational qualification of a Canadian physiotherapist or occupational therapist is currently in the process of changing from a 4-year baccalaureate program to a master's entry-level degree. By 2010, it's anticipated that all physical therapy education programs in Canada will offer the master's program. I don't know if that's happened, but that's from their website. Look at kinesiology. It requires a baccalaureate degree in human kinetics or kinesiology as a minimum entry requirement to practice kinesiology in Canada. Look at chiropractic medicine. Applicants are required to complete a minimum of 3 years of university before they are eligible for admission to the doctorate of chiropractic degree program. The majority of students entering the program have completed a baccalaureate university degree, not just the 3 years they require. Traditional Chinese medicine. My daughter is a doctor at TCM. A baccalaureate degree is now required for entry into a TCM program. In TCM practice in BC has recently fallen under a regulatory body, and the years of schooling for a deep TCM, Doctor of Traditional Chinese Medicine, designation was raised from 4 to 5 years. There's a pattern there. It's a pattern of increasing the schooling required to practice, not decreasing. So think about that when you review whether or not you should be a 3,000-hour program versus a 2,200-hour program. Is that going in the right direction? Is it in line with what you're seeing in other fields of healthcare?